My name's Margaret Ann Windsor, and I was kidnapped in 1941 by the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Bilderbergers. Joe Kennedy was appointed ambassador to England back in '36, and I was born in '39 and kidnapped in '41. I just put up videos. I've been on Facebook and putting YouTubes up for quite a while, so I put all the information up prior to this one. If you care to go back and look, didn't know about my kidnapping. I was doing a book because I'd worked for doctors. In 1978, when Larry Flint was shot in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and I lived in Marietta, it was a program shooter that shot him and killed him, and killed his attorney. And Mr. Flint is paralyzed. Mr. Flint, I'd never met, but I knew they were done in patterns, the ones I was writing about. And I was flown out later in '83 to his home in Bel Air twice, when one of the Congressman Larry McDonald from Piedmont Hospital in Atlanta, his want to make sure it's still going up. His plane, that KAL, was shot down by the Russian jet when it veered into the airspace August the 31st of '83. And 260 plus went down. Now, they knew the plane was going down because former President Nixon was on that flight, and he was taken off in Juneau. And by the way, Geraldo Rivera got off there too. So anyway, they knew the plane was going down. I'm not saying Geraldo was a part of anything, but it's kind of, he must have got wind of something and gotten off, or didn't get on. Now, I wanted to get back to this part. I told about JFK. The reason they don't tell about JFK in the cover of the Warren Commission is because it would lead back to me, my kidnapping, the takedown of my father, Edward VIII, who was married to Claudia Ruth O'Keefe. A total assassination, character assassination of my dad. He wouldn't go along. You might as well call them mafia. Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Bilderbergers, illegal George VI, my own uncle, who helped take his brother down. My father never had anything to do with Wallace Simpson. She married a double, an imposter. And all that money, I'm sitting here. They made a pauper out of me besides the torture they did to me here in this country and to my sons. But what I wanted to get to here, I want to say I put it up. JFK helped in my kidnapping and brought me to Moulton, helped bring me to Moulton, Alabama, when I was 2 years old in '41, and I was put there in a pigsty farm near Moulton. The Dempseys, they had twins. The Lina Dempsey, one of the daughters, had twins out of wedlock, and she killed Carl, and when he was about a month old, I guess. And Peggy, I still have to use her name. They gave me her identity. She was killed a week or 2 weeks before they put me there, so this was all planned. And that's near NASA and Huntsville and all this, the space industry. What I wanted to put up here, and I'm just going to quit because I'm not putting the endorsements, and I'm not putting pictures and all this up, documents, the birth certificates of the twins. They just mark through, and inserted the year they gave me that I grew up using, which was, they were older than me, a year older than me. But you're not supposed, that's illegal to mark through birth certificate documents like that, but they did it. And that's the name I still have to use. And I found out in '83 about my kidnapping. Now then, I'm going to fast forward to Flint furnished me a car for a year, and then after then, I was back on the road. What they did to me is so hideous if it's ever told, into my children, my parents, and my country. But I ended up here in Roanoke, Virginia. And Mr. Flint had been here on the parody. He was sued by Jerry Falwell, Liberty University, and because of the parody in Hustler magazine. Now he showed that to me out there, the galley proofs in '83, October of '83, when I was out there during the campaign. So I'm up here in Roanoke, and I couldn't get a job. I couldn't get a place to stay off the road, to keep from getting raped, and anything else that going from one town to the other begging. They made a pauper out of me. I went up on the Appalachian Trail, cold as heck, freezing, having to carry water to have water. I had none of the luxuries like a tent or sleeping bag. I froze until a few years later when I did manage to get a tent and sleeping bag. My point is, I want to get back to this. It was the spring of '93, I believe, because the new trail from Mountain Pass next to the post office down there, Tribal Post Office, had not been built. It was '93, I believe, that spring, and it had been so cold that I was there at the hiker at Full Heart Knob. I looked down the trail and I saw John Kennedy coming up, and I thought, when he came up, I said, "You look like John Kennedy." He said, "That's who I am," and he introduced his buddy. His buddy's the guy that was always with him, but his buddy never told about this, did he? He came up, and what he told me was that they flew, or they came to Roanoke. I'm not sure he said flew. I'm sure there's records of it. He said he came to Roanoke to see how they had made me live. So he absolutely knew who I am, and I ended up saying that to him, telling him, "I know your father was a part of my kidnapping and bringing me to Moulton. Your grandfather was named ambassador to England 36 till they kicked him out in 46 by Roosevelt." I said, "I know he was a part of kidnapping me." And I want to put this in. When all that happened, I had a letter from the FBI, and Mr. Flynn had been shot in Lawrenceville, Georgia. It was 1980, and I'm going to leave everything else out here. I worked for Fred Simpson. It's almost like Clues. Simpson, as in Wallace Warfield Simpson. Did not marry my dad, but history tells you that she did. Next job I had there in Huntsville was for Doyle Duke, the Duke of Windsor, who was an imposter. But at the same time, I'm working for the district attorney, and that's when John Lennon was shot by Mark David Chapman, a program shooter. But anyway, I lived at Warren House Apartments, as in Warren House, the cover-up. They covered up the JFK. Quite frankly, it's so ugly and hideous. If it's ever shown to the world, I can't believe all the world would find it funny. So I don't know. JFK Jr. Went down in the plane. He married a twin, and the twins become patterns in the mind control shootings, where you can prove some of them, like Gifford, the congresswoman that was married to Mark Kelly, and Scott Kelly and Mark were twins and astronauts, and so anyways, more to it than that. But John was married to a twin, and one of them was, I don't know, maybe both of them, I believe just one of the twins was on board when he went down in about 1999. It was a few years, not that many years after he came up the mountain and ate his peanuts and took out and ate food in front of me, and knowing and saying, "I came here to see how we made you live." And by the way, I found out since that the Kennedys are on one side of, and I'm not going to say anything further. The Kennedys are related indirectly to the Windsors. I hope the SOBs aren't kin to me. Personally, I'm the real Windsor. My father's Edward VIII. My grandmother's great-great-grandmother's Victoria II. I'm Victoria II. She's the first. That was name given to me when my father was forced to abdicate. He was married to Claudia Ruth O'Keeffe, sister to Georgia O'Keeffe, the artist, an American. She's a school teacher. This whole thing has been a character assassination, taking my father down, kidnapping me, and inserting their own monarch, George the Sixth, and Elizabeth, and that brood of criminals. They're war criminals. So anyway, John, you knew about it, didn't you? You've had your fun. You've had your magazine, George. I wonder if you thought about me when you went down.